Well, it went smooth. Stephen Foster. Anyway, and then also Clay Weil. He's our new secretary. I'd like to welcome both to the board. That any comments about their new positions, other than look forward to them helping and all the stuff we got in front of us.
Welcome, Amanda and Clay and Kurt. I have a question. I just had this little pop-up come up, says recording and transcription. Is that something new on here?
Well, it happens in Teams, yes.
So it's okay for me just to exit out?
I don't
Yes,
understand.
on the pop-up, yes, you can hit exit. It's just to help me so that way I can get the
Okay.
Very good. Thank you. With that,
Mike.
Clay, minutes of the meeting is the next thing on the agenda. I sent those to everybody from 11/25. I did have the file dated wrong. I had the date noted wrong in the context too. I've since have corrected that. But Clay, if you have those, do you mind reading through those real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Meeting was established by roll call attendance: Derek Patterson, Steve Foster, Scott Reek, Susan Redmond, Nigel, Charles, Dylan, JC, Richard, Rich, Jesse, Amanda, and myself were not present, and Kurt Lang. Proof of notification was established. Amanda Rich was voted in as the new secretary. I'm sorry, Kurt, I got the wrong one pulled up here. My fault. There we go. That's better. Southern Plains Regional National Tournament was discussed, and information was passed on to everybody about that being moved. Different discussion on that. You know, you guys can all read through. Kurt advised that the chairman's board on several things were in the works, but it was voted to move. We talked about the new bracketing system being rolled out in January. Several people were becoming familiar with it, and lots of positive comments. Rule books for each club were not distributed at the state body meeting. Discussed options on what we could do for that. Kurt recognized Nigel for the help he was given in getting the email system going. Sorry, trying to kind of push through this here. Kurt recognized that per the bylaws, Derek Patterson is in charge of things that would go directly to the chairman, directed to folk style district quorums, must be done the same way per the bylaws. 2 new vans are available during the folk style season that we can use. One is in Wichita, the other is in Lawrence. All passengers should be USAWKS carrying cards. The driver should be registered with fee insurance prior to driving. Becky Sweet, the independent auditor, a report just came in today. We will make that available per this meeting. 1099 still needed to be done to close out the 2024 season. It suggested that everyone became versed in our bylaws so we didn't have any issues further coming. Reimbursement of cards for board members should include the $30 background check. It remained at a $63 reimbursement for the card only. Women's code of conduct was tabled until this meeting. Kurt thanks Scott for hosting the Freestyle Greco meeting on the 24th of last month. At that point, Richard then nominated Amanda Rich for the membership director. Steve Foster had seconded that motion. The other candidate was Bryant Spears. There was not a lot of discussion there. Went to vote. 8 votes Amanda, 2 abstained. Currently still don't have a ton of names that for the treasury spot. There are a few that have said that they're interested. We tabled that until this meeting, and a handful of small line item options.
Anything else?
Not that I believe.
Okay.
Need to get a motion to approve those minutes.
Please.
Jesse will make a motion to approve the minutes.
Richard
Bill will second.
seconds.
Jesse
Deal.
made the motion. Richard seconds. All in favor? Let's take a vote. Derek,
Yes.
Stephen Foster,
Yes.
Scott, is Scott on yet? If not, Susan? Nigel,
Yes.
Charles,
Yes.
Dylan,
Yes.
JC,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes, sir.
Rich Zimmerman,
Yeah.
Jesse.
Yes.
Okay. Those are the 9 of the 11 voting members. It passes unanimously, those who voted. Okay. Thank you. Hey, before we move on, I also wanted to take a moment to reiterate um, my pleasure that I feel we have a great board to work with here. In our last board meeting, it was reminded to us that 11 out of the 14 people had been replaced on this board. And I think there's an awful lot of talent that have come forward and that was elected by the state body. And I really appreciate what everybody's been doing. We've got a lot in front of us, but again, my hat's off to this board and the people that are on the board and what we got in front of us. It was noted also, rule books were covered in the minutes. Did those rule books make it to the district directors or anything get mailed out to the directors to pass out?
District 2 has not received any.
So they're still with Jordan, right?
Kurt, I talked to Jordan last week and he said he was dropping mine in the mail. So
Okay, so things are in work then. Okay.
Yeah.
And I need to call him. I'll call him and let him know to send me those bills, okay? Has anybody else had contact on your rule books? Okay,
Is District 1, we have not.
okay. When I talk to him, I will visit with him about that, okay?
Thank you.
Another thing too, Nigel William went to an awful lot of trouble to set up instructions on how to get our pictures into the board of directors. I want to make sure everybody follows through with that so people know who's on the board. They can see who the live picture of that. Was there any problems with the directions you were given by Nigel and it seemed pretty straightforward and easy? I just want to make sure that it's going to happen. And if there is any problems, we say what they are so we can get them addressed and get you guys' picture in there.
My only concern is I look much better in my picture that's already on there.
Well, you don't have to change the picture that's on there if it meets pretty close to what's already established. I didn't change
Not-
mine.
Nigel, if you just put my picture that's already on there, I look the same, just older now.
I don't know if I kept that one or not.
I probably broke something.
No. Let me look real quick. Yeah, I don't. And because on the current website, when you upload a picture, no matter how big it is, resolution wise or size wise, it downsizes it to like 50 pixels. And once it's in there, you can't get to the original photo again. So when I swapped all of these out and all that, that just went bye-bye. So if you have a new picture or even that old one sitting around, you can send it to me again and I can put it back up there again. It doesn't make any difference to me.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else on the pictures? Okay. The other thing I'm adding right now, and there is an email going out right now for myself, but it includes stuff we want to talk about relative to Becky's report. She had some supplement pages that she sent along that had to go by year. And then in addition, I also, so Scott's there too. Scott is here now. Okay. Oh, no, he's asking if it's started at now or at 8. It's happening now. Let me answer him real quick. Okay. And then the other thing is sending these drafts out right now. And those drafts include a Win magazine contract and dates of when it will be posted. And then also Becky's additional reports in her report to all of us. I also want to make sure that business is done in Outlook rather than using the Outlook email addresses. It keeps everything pretty tidy and keeps everything in one location. I know I have another email address and I'm okay with that, but I'd like to keep the business in the Outlook extensions that have been set up for everybody. And I think it's just a better way of keeping our business organized.
That's what Nigel set up, correct? Through the
Yeah.
USA Wrestling? Okay, I
Yes.
need to set that up then.
Okay. One thing I did not mention in our last board meeting, and Clay, if you'd note this, we had a request from Circle Wrestling Club about a 6-year-old boy who had difficulty hearing. He has special hearing aids. He has severe hearing, and the rule book allows that hearing aids are established and communication between coaches and those hearing aids are allowed as long as they're not in wrestling mode, as long as it's in between periods, as long as the match hadn't started, as long as all these things. Well, there's a big disadvantage there for a young man who's 6 years old. And that issue is that those those wrestlers, they're wrestling, that the coaches are hollering at them and the whole bit. And this board allowed that young man, that 6-year-old, to be able to communicate and hear his coaches during the matches. So that is an update. We did not cover that last time, but this, through electronic business and conducting business, we were able to approve that. Any questions on that? Okay.
Would you text me or email me the vote and anybody that voted on that so I can write that down? It can be after the meeting, obviously.
Sure. Okay.
And that sorry to interrupt just for a second. That exemption form that I drafted is available in the group files. So you can find that if you want to look at it. Lauren from Circle has a copy of that, obviously, that's signed by me, but it's out there in case any of the board members want to see it.
Okay, thank you. And that's another reason we want to see the business is kept in all one place there. It, like Nigel said, he has a folder set up and we can just keep that stuff there and access it so anybody can get to it. That said, I want to take a look at something here. Let me share my screen. And I do this. Let me do this first because I'm not at the best at sharing screens, but what I'd like to do is well, let me see here. Can you see Can you see my dashboard here? Can
Yes.
everybody see Kansas State
Yes.
leadership? If we look at that date on there was the 27th. I thought after our meeting, I thought, darn it, we covered this in our board meeting last time. I better go get a snapshot. So 2 days later, I went in and this was what the snapshot said 2 days after our last meeting. Okay. And we were 9,500 kids, wrestlers. We had current wrestling leaders at 1852. You can see the percentage that's up from last year. We had current clubs at 219, sanctioned events at 75. So with that, I'm going to change gears here and let's look at what it is today. And we'll just take a snapshot of what that is. And while I have it up, Clay, if you will take a snapshot for our records, I think it's, you'll see that the team here is making pretty good progress here in Kansas. Hang on here. Okay. When I look, I'm going to get on my other side. And I apologize for being not the best at this, but can everybody see that?
Yes.
So we went from 9,500, we're up over 11,702 current athletes. That's 8% greater than where we were last year at the same time. 41% of those are brand new athletes. I think that's kind of concerning, but this is a snapshot, current wrestling leaders, what it was before. That's just 3 weeks ago. Okay. 226 current clubs, sanctioned events. So if you would, Clay, can you take a snapshot of that, of what it is in time?
Yep, I got it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on that? I think things are going pretty good there. Okay. Next was code of conduct. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Blue chip. Did you guys start receiving in the mail your blue chip shirts? I did
Yes, sir.
yesterday.
Got mine
This-
yesterday.
Okay, so they're out and they should be coming. Appreciate what they've done. It was a very kind gesture. Okay. Foster said he had not received his yet. They should be coming though. Okay. Code of conduct. Several things came up on a code of conduct last year, and let me see if I can get to it. Or can someone get to it or find it on the website there as I'm talking? I think it's a pretty solid document. I think it outlines the expectations of what we need out of our leaders. It's just that there's one thing that over time it has not grown with. And I tabled this from our last meeting because I think it's a sensitive topic. And that topic is we have women wrestling within our organizations now. And I do not, and I'll just say it, I speak because I think of a parent who's over a girl. And if that parent realized the next day during a wrestling tournament that their coach was out at a men's club the night before, I think they would have some issue with that. And I'm wondering if we ought not have some language, even if it's a bullet, without having to change that form too much. But what those expectations, I would hate to have to explain that with that visual and thinking that that person was just the night before looking at someone not that much older. So I'll open that up for discussion. That's what this topic was last time I just tabled it. I just don't think that, I think we ought to look at this and see what's in the best interest of of ourselves, our organization, of our parents, of our wrestlers, and the whole bit. Comments?
This is JC in District 1. I think it's important that we have something like that in our bylaws, as well as, the discussion of alcohol. I think we've talked about that, not being able to be purchased with USAW money.
Yeah. And those two things in the code of conduct, being responsible under drinking is in there. And then the board itself made a motion last year that they will not allow it to be paid for during events for coaches or anybody else other than Southern Plains. That was the only stipulation. I'll do it this way. Is there a no or opposed position by anybody that we should not do that? Because if it is favorable, I'd like to go ahead and assign this to where we can start working on that language and get that code of conduct changed over and then presented to the board.
Hey,
Is there
Curtis,
anybody-
Jesse.
Yeah.
Just want to be clear here. So the current code of conduct form on the USAWKS website is what you're referring to, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what you're looking for is that basically we need to take a closer look at this and make some changes, edit it to make it more up to date with today's environment.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then thinking of the process of this, once that is done, every wrestling leader in the state of Kansas is going to sign this, or what's the thought process behind that, I guess?
That code of conduct is more tailored toward people that we are bringing on staff to run our teams and take kids places to different events, national events, ride in buses with them or ride in our vans with them. But to me, it's not an overall thing that I would expect everybody to sign, but I definitely, the people who are taking charge of our budgeted items that take kids different places and are involved in those teams, I think that's a good start right there. Unless someone
Nigel?
opposes.
Okay.
Nigel, isn't my form already, I signed a new form here within the last 30, 40 days. Wasn't that posted on the website? We had a new form.
Wasn't done by me. So if
I
there's a
got
new,
Joe. Yeah, I sent it to Joe.
Richard, I
I'll
remember
find
that.
it in
I
the receipt.
remember that, and that was the current code of conduct form, is what that was.
Oh, was it the current one? Okay.
Yep.
We haven't changed anything yet. But I do think there was a few changes in that form, but I don't know of any record that I could put my finger on that said, hey, this changed, even though I just think it happened.
Oh,
I think what happened there was it got circulated between the state board, and I think if I recall correctly, there was a thought process that the board should sign this and get it back to whoever, to Joe at the time. If I recall correctly, but I don't recall any updates to it, I guess. So.
Yeah. And I think this board, along with the people that we chartered to take care of our teams and go places and stuff like that, but this board ought to be signing that document also. Okay. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't do that right now. In fact, I think we ought to, but when a revision comes up, we'll look at re-signing it then. But I definitely want to see about your guys' position and making sure we can get some updates in that form relative to how we've progressed in bringing women into this sport and making sure we're respective of all of our participants. Okay.
Richard agrees.
Okay. If everybody agrees, I would like for Clay and Dylan to get together using that form, and whether it's a bullet item added to a paragraph, see how we can modify that form and still keep it relatively the same size it is, and get that point across but add that to that. Is that okay
Okay.
with you two?
Yeah,
Sounds good.
yeah.
Sounds good to me.
I can absolutely do that. I just want everybody to kind of keep in mind for later conversations. I have no issue with the code of conduct, but the biggest issue I think we're going to run into is there is no section currently in our bylaws that have any disciplinary action towards anybody breaking that code of conduct. So we don't have any precedent set on, this is directly what our bylaws say. If this code of conduct is broke, this is what's going to happen. And, an appeals process for that and anything else that would go along with that. So, we can obviously update that. That's great. But realistically, I mean, if somebody really wanted to push it, there's no disciplinary action that we can take towards them outside of, maybe telling whoever the person that's in charge of that trip is they, can't go, but there's nothing that we're going to be able to do until we get that updated in our bylaws. So.
Very good point. Good point. Well, let's work on the form. And in the meantime, we'll see if there isn't some language in there that may apply, but then we'll get it corrected too. Okay. And make sure it does apply relative to that. Any other discussion on the code of conduct? Okay.
Hey, I do have one thing.
Yes, sir.
Why would and I'm not trying to be difficult here, but why would we limit that only to leaders? And I guess why wouldn't we approach that from a whole state level?
If that's what everybody would like to do, I
mean, is there specific language in there regarding drinking that maybe scares us a little bit, I guess, or regarding alcohol?
I think the responsibility that is defined in that form for drinking is pretty solid.
Yeah.
But everybody ought to take a look at that and get some input into the guys that will be modifying this. But I think you'll find the form pretty strong. It's just what else do we want to adapt in it. And to your point, Jesse, I'm open if everybody agrees that it needs to be statewide. I'd have no problem with that.
I just don't know if you're going to be able to tell every coach in the state of Kansas when you go to a trip with your own club that you're spending your own money to go on, what they can and can't do, essentially. I mean, I get that. Yeah, we got to have a little bit better of a reputation, and not have people causing problems. But I just feel like you're going to get a lot of pushback on coaches saying, hey, if I can't drink in my hotel the night before Warrior Clash or one of these other tournaments, they're going to go, yeah, I'm not buying this.
Yeah. I think you'll find that when you read about alcohol, it's pretty solid form. But
I think it should be intended to govern ourselves as a body and as a leadership team. I think when we start extending down into the clubs, it becomes a bit of an overreach. I think that's for the clubs to monitor themselves. That's just my opinion. I don't think we want to implement some rules that we can't really enforce.
Well, we can't dictate the life of every person associated with. That's why they go through the background checks and they have the safe sport and all those kinds of things. You can't tell a dad when they leave wrestling practice and go home, because that code of conduct specifically says that a coach cannot drink beer in front of his children. You're going to tell a dad he can't go home, sit on his couch and drink in front of his own kids? Just my 2 cents.
Okay.
And our current bylaws do have a notation in here on essentially any action that harms the reputation of the sport. In addition to sanctions resulting from ejection of the tournament, additional disciplinary proceedings may result from one or any combination of the following: any action that harms the reputation of the sport. And Jesse, I think I know where you're kind of going with that side of it. And I think if we kind of just get some of this language in these bylaws changed around to be presented, I think that might help as far as, if a coach goes out, and causes some big problem that you know, at a tournament or prior to that tournament, then, you know, obviously that can be something that, you know, Dylan can look at as a safe sport representative. You know, and then just have something to go along with that as well.
I think we had
Yeah.
a comment in the chat that basically said that we can apply these standards for any USA Wrestling Kansas sanctioned event. In other words, teams that we are sending as a state out of state, and that makes sense. For team stuff that happens inside the state, that probably should be dealt with at the club level. That's what's in the chat, and I pretty much agree with that.
I agree with that too.
I would as well.
Yeah.
This is Richard. Richard would agree with that as well.
Yep. And I guess my point behind that, and Clay, you kind of hit it on the head, was maybe we need to really look harder at the language that is stated, and not that we're allowing for things to happen on sanctioned trips. But if we're solely using this, if the intended use for this code of conduct is for, you know, team leaders, state leaders, things like that, then I'm 100% okay with it. But if we wanted to look at the language on it, and not saying we're going to soften it, but you know, it would be a simple process to, you know, basically have them acknowledge this when they're purchasing their leadership card, their leader card through USA membership that's the only place I was going with that. So, but totally get it.
Thank you. Everybody's in consensus. I mean, I didn't, way it ended up is keep it at the sanctioned level relative to the things we budgeted, that says, hey, we have teams going out. This is what we're expecting out of the conduct of the people leading those teams, and also our board level.
Yeah.
I saw something go across the screen, but I couldn't read it.
It was a chat from,
Yeah, keep it at the
member.
USAW coaches level,
Yeah.
you know, relative to the sanctioned events like you guys are saying. Okay, let's record that way and work on it in that manner. Any other discussion relative to that code of conduct? All right. Let me see about sharing my screen again. I'm so good at it. Let me find it. Okay. Share screen.
You're in the waiting room.
Someone in the waiting room?
Yes, I am.
Make sure you're out.
Scott made it.
Are you in?
Yeah, I'm in.
Okay. Nice to have you, Scott.
Yeah, I've been trying for quite a while.
Kurt, Susan Redmond's in as well.
All right. Thank you.
They need to know that.
Yeah, the transcript stopped.
So it won't show past. It was a 30-minute limit.
Can
Oh,
everybody see my screen?
They don't care.
Yes.
Hang on, let me come back to it. Share. Can everybody see that? This is a document. It's a memorandum of USA Kansas Wrestling from Becky Sweet, CPA, review of the books. Everybody see this?
Yep.
Yes.
This was the final report. I sent this out already. And I actually sat down on Tuesday with our CPA and went over this document also. Right off the bat, they do audits all the time. They not only do audits for others, they get audits done. They were impressed about our audit and the report, because there's a lot of things that go wrong all the time in finances, and to hear and to see that right off the bat, there's no glowing errors in the books. And as they went through it, they were impressed that not a lot of issues that are going on in our books. Right off the bat, no glaring issues. The cash that was provided on the dual and Fargo trips was never moved into an expense account. It is sitting in a transfer account. I went over that with them. I do see that a cash has not been used on the trips, was deposited back. Couple of recommendations. Do not give cash out. So we'll be looking at getting cards, that membership or cards that can be transferred to them that have money on them. And then we'll get that back, cash that out and account for it that way. The other thing was implementing a
Kurt,
two-person.
I have a comment on that.
Sure.
On your, it says that if your team leader does not have their receipt to provide for their expenses, I don't like that language, just for the fact of if you have a team leader lose a receipt that's for $800 for food one night, that could become an issue and people not wanting to step into those team lead positions. I understand they got to keep those receipts and as best they can, but if they lose one, saying that they have to reimburse it, I think is a little bit of a overstep.
Okay.
I think you need a receipt.
Yeah, I think you need a receipt too, but part of that is going to be a lot of times we'll send things out with cash, but I also put them out with a credit card. And when we did have to have cash, all the receipts came in, but to this point, I really think we do need receipts, but sometimes if we're dealing with a credit card, we can get back to those receipts that are charged and sitting there in your bank for visible look to all that, to be able to see them. But I think that's yes.
Hey, real quick, look, if you're a team leader and you're responsible for the receipt, as soon as you get it, just take a picture of it with your phone. That way, if you lose the physical receipt, you've got the picture on your phone and you can submit that as proof.
I like that also, Charles. It's a great option.
Yeah.
So I think it ought to be a modification. If a receipt is over a certain dollar amount, you absolutely must have it. But some of these coaches are going to go out, they're going to come back with 100 receipts. Do we want them to give up a receipt for a $10 item?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Okay. I see. Here's some background coming in from some. Okay, it's there. It's gone. Any other question on that first bullet?
No, but I do have one quick comment from a technology standpoint, just for people who aren't familiar with virtual meetings and stuff like that, is if you're not actually talking, it's best to put your microphone muted, and also turn off any background noise that you have going on, TVs and all that other stuff, because otherwise those will come through if you don't have a noise canceling microphone.
Okay, thank you. Second bullet there is implement a two-person review of expenses. I would recommend that the treasurer and the director review the invoices, both sign off on the approvals. That happens quite a bit right now. There is that relationship and that continuity. It goes further and says this reduces the chance of embezzlement. This does not make sense for everyone. So I would leave it up to the board to decide above what dollar amount or what categories this makes sense for. For example, have a two-person approval on expenses over $400. I have no way knowing that I did 500 transactions and several of them were over 500 last year, how every one of those would be reviewed and signed off by someone else.
What's your recommendation?
We did have a standing rule of 10 grand, and simply because things are budgeted that way. But why don't we go 5,000? And I'll make that recommendation that
I second that.
5,000 above.
Richard seconds the $5,000 recommendation.
Any discussion I can't make that motion, but I've make that recommendation. Okay.
Richard makes the motion that we increase the approval on expenses over to require a two-person approval for any expense over $5,000. Okay. Does that meet your?
I think that would, that's a doable, and I think that's reasonable. If someone sat in the treasury spot, they would they would quickly come to realize how much activity goes on within that. But we definitely want to make sure things are secure, things don't get embezzled. And is the approval okay through via email?
Yes. Richard says yes, but Kurt, to get back to that, is $5,000, is that high enough, or does it need to be higher? Does it need to be 7,500?
I think $5,000 would be fine. We got a brand new
Okay.
treasurer that's going to be coming on board, and that person's probably going to have a lot of questions and like the idea that there is a limit there, I would think. But anybody opposed to that
Quick question.
$5,000 limit?
Quick question. If it is 5,000, who are the two people that would approve it? Just for my clarity.
Sure. I think the person, like if it's under Scott's team budgets, that person, the treasurer, would get with the director who's over that money, that line item of money.
Okay.
Is that fair to everybody?
Richard agrees.
Okay.
We still need.
I'll second Richard's motion. This is Nigel.
Kurt, I also, but one question for my budget, say I go to book hotels for one of the dual teams. What does that look like? Excuse me. Do I have a credit card or a card number, or do I got to get approval before I make that booking?
No, I think we have a diligence to make sure we have the best cost, right? But what that really looks like is that your treasurer is going to have a credit card, and there's going to be limits, because when you get into your booking and the teams that you're going to be taking around, you're looking at $9,000, $10,000, $11,000, or $7,000 on, depending on how long it lasts. It's not, yours is not a small occurrence, and it would be a credit card, and that treasurer will also be authorizing the credit card to be authorization to be sent in with the documentation showing that there be signatures and approval from the treasurer for that transaction. So you're not alone on that at all, Scott.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions on two-person approval at being $5,000? Okay. I'll go ahead and call the question, and we'll ask for a vote. Derek, do you agree with the $5,000 second person review of approval for that?
Yes, I do.
Foster,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Nigel,
Yes.
Charles,
Yes.
Dylan,
Yes.
JC,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Rich,
Yeah.
Jesse.
Yes.
Thank you. That's 11 votes right there. Unanimous. Going further, district level books. All of the district level books look to be in order. I reviewed the bank statements, a summary for each district, and everything matched. I did not request invoices back up any of the expenses at this high of a level review. Tax returns, the job of the CPA, our CPAs, GJ and Company here in Wichita. They've been doing our federal forms for the last 4 years. They're actually going to be starting that this week, so we can get that put together prior to Christmas. It's due right second, third week in January, so we're starting that now. But the job of the CPA is preparing the returns to take information provided from QuickLine online QuickBooks and from each of the districts, and preparing the tax returns. They are not responsible for auditing the books. The tax returns are prepared accurately based on the books they are received. So everything that's been in QuickBooks has been accurate, that's been submitted by our CPA. Okay. Next is clock review, revenue review. I was provided the following: 2021, 22, 22, 23, and 23 and 24 seasons. The rental schedule for each of those years, copy of the deposit slips, the invoices that were issued. The invoices that were issued were received after I gave my report at the state body meeting on November 10th. Therefore, the numbers in the below summary are different than what was reported at that meeting. You have a top line that says version 1, version 2, and under it, under that version 1, it shows the rent due. Under version 2, it says the rent is due. Version 1 is that based on schedules of Mark, Richard, Chris, and Scott. Version 1 is they didn't get charged. Version 2 is the same as version 1, but don't charge for multiple day events. So in other words, if they rent them on Saturday and they had them on Sunday, we would not charge them for that second day. As we go through there, you can see that under those versions that we have a total of $128,000 that would have came in. Our invoices amount ended up being $80,000, which is the third column. If we did not charge for the multi-day events, it would have been 107. The payments that were received for that same invoice were 19,850. And you can see in 21, 22. And then we get into the differences of what those amounts would be. So in the long run, I'm looking at the last two columns of this report over the 3 years. And it says that there's a possibility that we have not invoiced for $68,900 under version 1, or under version 2, that when there was multi-day events, there's $48,150 that was not invoiced that we received payment for. Received payment for is the way I should say that. It says the rent due was calculated by both the rental schedule and adding invoices that were prepared by Richard for any rentals that weren't on the rental schedule. The invoice amount column are the invoices that were issued by Richard's records. The payment received column is per the deposit slips. The difference column is calculated by taking the rent due less the payments received. We have some money that has not been collected, it appears, by this report. But I think that this is just I think that this report is a first glance at our records relative to the schedule, relative to invoices and payments received. I don't know how any of us would sit here and look at this information without taking a deeper dive into this information to find out exactly, well, as we go through the schedules, which I sent out right as we started this meeting, you will see that there is a high demand for clocks that we substantially support on a routine basis. And every line item on there shows where they came from, who they were for, but they also, those line items include our district tournament, they include our state tournament, they may include things that should not be considered under the way this was viewed. Okay, there might be some amendments or some calculations that need to be rectified so we can look at this as a whole, holistically, for how we do our business. I'm not saying that there isn't money that hasn't come in on invoices that hasn't been received. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying, though, is that I think that a committee ought to be formed to take a look at these records and come back with what is missing, what needs to be done to correct this going forward. How do we ensure that from a standpoint of all the demand that's out there on clocks, can we continue to fulfill them? You know, is there a contingent plan on that? But I think that these numbers speak highly of what we've got to do and present before the state body our findings. And I do not think that it would be correct just to put this in front of the state body as it looks right now. I think a committee needs to take a look at the schedules and the whole bit and come up with exactly what the reports really look like. Is anybody opposed to that for this activity on these invoices?
So the invoice amount shows $80,000, and the payments we received is $21,000 less.
Yeah, the
I mean,
50 million one, yes.
you know, I mean, I don't have a problem putting it in front of people. You know, she's a CPA. She
And the only
much
thing
better
I'm
at-
saying,
that any of us on this board are capable of coming up with.
well, the only thing is, did every line item, was it actually, I noticed when I looked at the detail that our state tournament with 18 clocks and all the district tournaments, they were in the mix of that too. So we would not have charged for those. That's what I'm saying, Rich. I just want to make sure that the report's reviewed for clarity and making sure that it's sound. I'm not saying it alters. I think that this committee would take a look at those and present that back to this board.
Kurt, how would that be any different than what is presented here? Are we just looking more granularity?
It would be more granularity, making sure that if we say that we didn't invoice for
Gotcha.
that amount of money, that it didn't include the state tournament. It didn't include our district tournaments because we don't charge for those. I
Gotcha.
mean, those are our own. We own
We
those.
don't charge for the colleges. We don't charge for the state tournament, district tournament. There's that schedule is
In those cases,
Go ahead.
sorry, Rich. In those cases, it would look like it's something that's owed to us when in all actuality, it's not. That's what you're saying, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Makes sense.
Well, and to Rich's point though, we did invoice for $80,000, $424 worth of clock invoices, and we received less than 60,000.
Yes.
So regardless, I mean, we wouldn't have invoiced those if that was for a state tournament or a district tournament, correct?
True. Well, true. I agree
But we
with you.
did-
Yes.
Well, that's just, so that's just easy math though.
What she did is went through and calculated on that schedule. She calculated, hey, stop. She calculated all the score clocks in one schedule. That score clock schedule is simply a worksheet for me. There were certain tournaments, like today, I have on there that Onega had a certain number of clocks reserved for their tournament. Well, they only use 4, so they're only going to be paying for 4. Sometimes I don't change that on that schedule because it's a worksheet for me, is what that has always been.
So explain that a little bit more, Richard. I'm confused. I'm just looking, and I'm just trying to understand this, but
I understand.
we
Okay.
invoiced between 21 and 24. We invoiced for $80,000 and we received payment of less than 60. Is that, I want to make sure that's correct, I guess.
That is not correct. That's what she believes. That may be right. We invoiced amount 23. Kurt, is that what we received in the, I believe that, yes, I believe our invoice amount was $80,000, $23,150 for 2023-24, 2021-22 was 28,850 and 22-23 was 28,424, but I think one of those is off.
We had the one year where we had to move things in the other budget.
Right. That was 21-22.
Yeah, I think something's wrong with the 23-24 number of 14,000 payment received. Because I think we came in at 24,000.
See, that's what I'm saying. This whole deal is. Let's get the committee together and everybody can go through everything that I have. I have no problem sharing everything. And I can assure you that most assuredly there have been invoices that I have not sent out for their, when we get towards closer to the end of the year, some of the clubs that had them towards the end of the year, when we're getting closer to, when I get busy with the district tournament, etc., certain clubs didn't get invoiced. I'm absolutely positive. Or certain events.
And they're very, I noticed it, I'm not sure what that was that came up there. But I did notice that per your schedule you put out about a week and a half ago, 10 days ago, those are things that treasury wise, a person could start invoicing those clubs after the date that they had those clocks. And so I think there's a mechanism that as we go forward, we say, hey, here, I mean, let's just take operations this year. There should be schedules that have gone out all along, and a treasurer should be able to take that and say, hey, I got to go do these invoices to make sure those invoices and that process gets taken care of. And that's what I'd like for this committee to take a look at too, is making sure we get back on track with the proper steps to conduct this business.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with, this is Jesse, and I'm just going to state what I've stated in the past, and this is not a knock on any one person or individual, but from my time on this board, we're not very good at this. And I think we have a responsibility as a board to be better. And if part of this committee is that, then I would agree 100%. But I still think we owe it. We definitely still owe it to our state body to figure out what's going on here. Absolutely. Is my only point on that. So.
Yeah, and a couple things. It should be very simple to figure out where some of the issues lie, just going into that schedule and removing the tournaments that we wouldn't have billed for, and then recreating these stats that she has here on, the invoice amount and the payment received. But then Richard, where you had said, you may have somebody on the schedule for 6 clocks and they only need 4, and you only billed them for 4, but didn't write that down. Correct. We're going to have to change that a little bit to where, that is that is at least documented somewhere, so we know that, hey, they didn't actually get 6, they only got 4, so we only billed them for 4. And then the other thing I did want to say too, I'm just lots of stuff in the chats are flying through, and I just wanted to acknowledge this real quick. Anna Marie Smith from Raider Wrestling, you are allowed to suggest things, but you just have to be recognized by the board. So I would suggest, if you wanted to, just go ahead and click the hand raise button, and then we can have somebody acknowledge you for that.
I acknowledge Anna Marie Smith. This is JC.
Thank you, JC. I just want to state that from a person on the body looking at these numbers, there's glaring irregularities. And I think it would be prudent just to go back, sort these numbers out. And as someone suggested here on the right, establish some standard protocols so it doesn't come back to this again. I mean, the numbers are alarming, to say the least. So we should definitely get this sorted out and then move forward. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Kurt, I agree with Anna, and I think that's something we've got to fix. As a new board that's kind of coming together, it's something we've definitely got to look into. I think appointing a committee to look into this is a great idea, and it's something that we've got to aggressively tackle just to get it behind us. If it was administrative errors, great. If there's money involved, great. Let's just get it figured out and put it behind us.
And that's why I'm asking for a committee. There isn't any way that we could objectively go in front of that state body tomorrow and say, here it is. I think we got to be able to go in front of them and say, here it is. And this is what's going on. And this is what we're doing about those irregularities. Here's the things that we've accumulated and went back and got. Here's the stuff we did not. And here's our starting point of when actions are in place and how we're going to be doing and conducting this business. If everybody agrees,
Absolutely.
I would like to see a committee formed on this. And I know the district directors have quite a bit of stuff on their plates. But this is not a disciplinary topic. So if you go and you look at our bylaws relative to committees, we have the flexibility to go do investigations and bring things back to this board. In that same bylaw area, it talks about the district directors being on those committees. It doesn't say all of them, but it says they have to have representation on them. And again, this is not for disciplinary action. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, that what it's saying in here is such other committees, standing or special, shall be appointed by the chairman, folk style director, or board of directors, or the state body from time to time as deemed necessary. So in this instance, I would say you just need to probably pick 3 people in that committee to decide who you want on that committee.
Okay. I've already put Dylan on a meeting relative to this or to the code of conduct, but Dylan, would you mind serving on that and leading that up?
And that's fine. I can do that. I wanted to recognize what James said, Bilby said in the chat. So we
What did he
rule out
say?
the anomalies. Each district director could appoint a member and then have a board member oversee it. That would also help our districts be involved so they can see that this was not a board looking at this and not us looking at it to try to cover the board kind of thing. And then one of us oversee it.
Okay.
But I have no problem being on the board.
Leading that.
Leading that
out
board,
of the districts. Out of the districts, is there, Jesse, do you have someone that you would recommend for that?
Yeah, his name's Clay Weil.
Clay.
No, I can give me a yes. I have somebody within our board that I'm thinking of. I just want to talk to them before I confirm that. But you can count on somebody, myself or a District 4 board member, to be a part of that. Does that help?
Yep, it does. District 1, JC.
Yeah, I don't have a person right offhand. Can I get a day to screen some people? I just don't want to say somebody without talking to them first, but I'm sure I could find somebody who would be willing to do it.
Okay. And what I'm going to ask is that Dylan will be capturing those names. So I want you to get in contact the district directors. I want him to be on those along with myself and the other district directors on who is being assigned out of each district. We will have one per district. Richard, any suggestion?
I'll have to contact Lauren Arrowsmith first, but I would recommend Lauren Arrowsmith.
Okay.
I will have to confirm with her first.
Okay. Rich?
I'd like to be on that committee.
Fantastic, fantastic. Okay. So you got, Dylan, you have one name for sure. That's Rich, and the other district directors will be getting with you relative to those names. Richard, you're heavily involved in this yourself, and I want you to stay objective, but supply all the information that's needed by them. I don't know what everything that was sent to Becky. I did receive the documents that I sent out right at the time we started this meeting that went along with the numbers that she put together. It shows the schedules. It has highlighted lines on there, but I'm going to allow this committee to dig into that. And they definitely have an objective, and that is to report out to the state body. That report out should include corrective action. That report out should include the things we're doing different to make sure that it does not happen again. Did I miss anything? Okay. Go to let me stop sharing, and then I'll bring up another screen. Share. Bear with me here. Yeah. The last portion of that email that said that that there was access to the QuickBooks that was not granted. And there was a request for access to QuickBooks when I was in the hospital. And Rich, you called me and talked to me about it at that time. Prior week, that report was actually, I thought, coming due on that Friday, but that Wednesday after that is when that came in. But here's the dialogue. This is, can everybody see my screen? Everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, and it was myself to Becky, and I said, hey, good morning, Becky, and this is back on November 6th. Hope you've been doing well. And staying with the direction I was given by our primary administrator on October 29th regarding access to the download of our QuickBooks accounts, while supporting you for the scope of the audit for the last 3 years. And then in quotations, this came from Mike Juby, and here's what he said. He said, to provide the auditor with the information she'll need for those 3 years, I would create and download or print the following reports. These are all standardized reports in QuickBooks, and you can find them in the reports section. You should create copies of each of these reports for each of the 3 years being audited. Those being the balance sheet, profit and loss, a general ledger, a trial balance, a transaction detailed by account. She may ask for additional information after reviewing these reports, but they should give her all she needs to do the basic audit. I provided, and then I wrote to him, I provided the reports per the guidance above. Is there anything else I've missed? I hope not. Please let me know. That's what I wrote Becky. And in the meantime, I supplied her with 88 documents and 1.71.4 megabytes of data, of bank statements and everything else. And at that time, in putting this together, she said, that's fine. I'd like to make it easier for me to search for some stuff, especially around the 990s, but I'll work with the paper reports. That was the last I heard from her until I was in the hospital. And when you called me, but this was what I was working to, and everything was provided early on. And so I'm not sure what else I could have done I didn't do any more because I was in the hospital at the time that the later request came in. Any questions on that? I'm just being transparent with what I know occurred there. Something came through. I didn't see it.
Kirk, if you go to the chat icon, which is the furthest left on your toolbar at the top, you can see when people are sending chats, whoever it may be.
Okay, let me see here. Chat. Oh, I see it now. Yeah.
Hey, in the chat, I know it's off topic and I'm going back a little bit, but District 1 has Amanda Moore as the rep for the committee for the clocks.
Thank you. Dylan, you got that? Amanda.
Yes, sir. I got it.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Is there anything else that needs to be discussed on Becky Sweet's report?
You know, if someone were to go back and look at the board minutes when she was appointed to do the audit, they will find that that particular meeting was an illegally called meeting. It did not meet the guidelines for our electronic meetings, but that's a topic for another day.
And Richard, the bottom line is that the state body is owed
I
an
understand, Kurt. I'm not arguing that point. I'm just bringing up that point.
and it got beyond what those limitations were by the bylaws, but it's in front of us and I don't mind
And
going
we're
and
gonna,
doing this.
yeah, and we're
I
gonna
think it's
correct the
right thing to
issues.
do.
Correct.
And what would we like to set a date as in this group getting together and having an answer back for the board? Is a month too not enough? Or it would March meeting when we do state tournament, would that be enough? But in the meantime, we've got to get the clocks under control and invoices going and stuff like that. So there's going to be activity going on regardless, but I didn't hear what you said, Rich. I apologize.
You're right. I would say the March meeting. We've got our tournament next month that I run, and it's but yeah.
Everybody else okay with that?
I think the March meeting, just because of the holidays, I don't think that asking somebody 30 days when literally 2 weeks are holidays is going to give them enough time. And I'd rather have them have enough time so that we can be accurate than try to rush it and maybe miss something. That's just my own 2 cents.
I think it's got to be pretty soon. I think March is too late. I think with all the pressure on the budget right now and you know the decision to kind of eliminate some of the costs for state, which I think is a great one to relieve some of the pressure off the clubs. There's a lot of scrutiny regarding money, and I think this is something that needs to be taken care of relatively quickly.
Is it possible that we could say like mid-January, or is it like either one or the other? It's either March or it's 30 days.
Mid-January is 30 days.
Being on the committee would be sometime before state, obviously. I think if we're pushing March, we're getting really too close to state, but I also don't want to push it and say January because
I think the February meeting makes
time
it.
to dive into it.
There should be enough time by February. 60 days.
This is Richard. Can I make a recommendation?
Yeah.
How about we push, let me see, how about we push for January 31st? And then if we need an extension, we ask for an extension.
Bilby's got his hand raised.
I want to recognize James Bilby.
Thank you.
Hey, can you folks hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I that's what I posted what Richard just said, the February 1st, because then that chews up the 2 weeks of the holiday season. But much like any, like a disciplinary committee that's set up, that's where I go back to district directors, recommend one person from each district. A board member is assigned, say it's Dylan Keller. Dylan Keller then gets with those 4 individuals from the district that does not include the district directors. And that allows an independent board review. And then that allows Richard to have time to clean up the numbers. Are inflated, obviously, because she listed did not have the she didn't have the rules to the game. She got the
Well, and
rules
it was
within an
unfortunate.
agenda.
Most of us, if any of us have ever been under an IRS audit, the auditor asks the person who is under audit to answer the questions, not just assume that they have the information. And she didn't ask me anything.
That audit was ran. One, it was done illegally, but 2, it was also not ran under being transparent and being fair. And it was done under a very short timeline. Give you a good example. I talked to Rob Dooling. He's a business owner in Wichita. I asked Rob, imagine you getting an audit going back 3 years at D&D Construction with a 1 or 2 week notice to produce. It's unheard of, unfathomable, very difficult to do. So therefore, we have to allow the time to make sure that it's done correctly on both sides to be fair. And that was not what was done. It was a very biased, directed attack on Richard, and Scott Edwards and Mark Stanley are also involved in this as well. That's all I've got. Thanks for my time.
Dylan, if we went to the beginning of February, would that give you enough time?
Yeah, I think beginning of February, that works for me. I think it also gives us plenty of time to get it done before state, but we're also not putting too much pressure on the people that are going to be involved.
Okay.
And with the outside clubs.
Okay. Anybody in disagreement with the February 1st?
No,
Make it work.
that's a good day.
Anybody opposed to February 1st? I did not hear anybody oppose it. We will go with February 1st as the date for the report from the committee that Dylan Keller is leading for us. District 4 will come up with a new name. Amanda is out of District 1. District 2 will be Lauren after you get her approval. And Rich, you wanted to serve out of District 3.
Correct.
Appreciate everybody on that. All right. Any other comments relative to Becky Sweet's report? If not, I will share my screen and move to the next topic. Everybody see that? His board member, it's from Irene. And she is interested in being our treasurer. She's been part of life in wrestling for a long time. Her husband coached at Hutch for 8 years. Her son, Javier's a part of our team. Started wrestling when he was age 4. I remember officiating him at Salina South after I talked with you the other day, Rich. So we got a family that's been a part of our organization a long time. And even that her son's coaching with our national teams now. Then you look at her qualifications, a bachelor's in science of accounting. She's been public accounting for 38 years, certified in QuickBooks, desktop, QuickBooks Online. We do QuickBooks Online. Have experience in payroll, client account services, taxes, and you can see accounts payable, receivable, payroll, bank reconciliation, general ledger, finance statement, tax preparation, sales, liquor, and use. Heck, sounds like she ought to be on your committee too, Dylan. Anyway, this person is put her name in the hat. Irene Vieira has put her name in the hat for treasurer. I would entertain nominations.
I'll make a motion to nominate her.
That was Rich Zimmerman nominated. Motion.
Susan Redmond, I'll second it.
Should we,
I have an issue with it.
should we seek more, should we seek more candidates instead of just one?
And we count him out. That makes no sense.
I would vote for.
That's the dude that's gonna-
This is Scott.
So we're open. So we have a motion and we have a second, and we're going to start discussion. After discussion, we will call the question and we'll make a vote. I did have other people that were interested, but they withdrew their name. To answer your question, Richard. Other discussion.
Yeah, I've got a bit of an issue with it. I honestly think she is a Will Coakley backed plant, to be honest with you. I also know that Will Coakley is actively working against us as a board. He distributed paperwork this weekend at a wrestling tournament. I have copies I've sent to the board. You guys all have copies of that information. And I think she's coming out as a part of that whole team of people. So I have a big issue with that, to be honest.
Oh, Will Coakley didn't reach out to her at all.
Well, I mean,
No,
do you know?
Will Coakley didn't reach out to her at all. Don't sit there and say, is Will Coakley pregnant? I reached out to her and asked if she was interested.
Feedback's coming from someone.
I think we need more candidates to review than just one.
I agree with Stephen Foster.
I do not know this person, or I'm not for her or against her, but I think we need more than one candidate to make an educated decision, and I think we should table it until we find multiple candidates that people can speak for or speak against. I don't know her, so I'm not saying yes or no. But I think we need more than one candidate. This is a very critical position, as we know well by the audit we're going through. I think it's too early to just jump on one candidate.
I agree with Stephen. This is Richard. I agree with Stephen.
I would state that I would agree with that as well, because especially with everything that's gone on financially leading up to the state body meeting and everything that happened with that, we really, really have to have a solid candidate for this position, because there's going to be a lot of things going forward that have to be put in line. I don't know this person, Irene, and I'm not making a judgment on her at this time at all. I just want to make sure that we cover all of our bases and do a lot of due diligence on this specific position.
Absolutely, I agree.
One thing I will.
This is JC District 1. My fear is if we leave it open for too long, I like if we do leave it open and are looking for other candidates, for how long will we leave it open for? I mean, we've got a qualified candidate here based on her background. And I think that this is a position that we need to fill relatively quickly. I know we don't want to rush to fill it with an unqualified person, but based on this person's resume, it looks like they're pretty qualified. How long are we talking if we do leave it open is my question.
I think we simply need to set a deadline, scour the people that are interested, and if she's the only person that comes back, then we have a decision to make. But if we find other candidates, let's set a time limit. We set a time limit on the audit, right? Let's do 2 weeks, 3 weeks, January 1st, pick a date.
I mean, we've had 4 months or a couple months to try to find a candidate.
I will.
Hey,
offer
Kurt, this is Jesse.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Kurt. Hey, I know you sent out one communication regarding, or I think I recall you sent out a communication regarding these open positions. I mean, would it, I'm kind of in agreement with the others that it'd be nice to have more than one to look at. Is it worth our time sending out another notification or another communication via the membership system that, as of this date, we have one, we'd like to have two at a minimum or something like that along those lines. That's my only thought. The other thought on this is, and I hate to open this can of worms. Have we ever looked at a third party situation for treasurer?
The closest we can is just doing the CPA.
Okay.
I would not be opposed to trying to hire a third party either, to Jesse's point. My apologies, this is Richard.
Well, one thing I will add, we did have some candidate out of District 3, a different candidate out of District 3. We also had name put forward out of the Emporia area. Both did not want to do it after all. The one thing that I do like about this candidate that I didn't mention before is that she knows Mike Juby quite well. And Mike Juby is an anchor when it comes to being the primary administrator of our QuickBooks. And I think that just that relationship, I was glad to see it when I learned that Mike and her already have an established relationship.
This is Dylan Keller. We have a hand raised from someone who's watching. Anne Marie. I'd like to recognize her as what her thoughts are on this coming from an outside club.
Sure.
Yes, thank you very much. So I am in agreement with some of the folks who've spoken already. Typically, when you do bring in someone, especially this kind of position, you do want to look at several different applicants. That's totally fair. I don't know this young lady or this woman. I don't know what her relationship is with Will Coakley. Maybe there's some information that hasn't been shared that she is working on his behalf. I don't know that. I like the idea of having an independent CPA or an independent person come in if we can't come to an agreement on this individual, but JC has spoken on her behalf, and I think that he's somebody who is our district director and is very well respected. So unless someone has some specific information that Miss Vieira is working against the board, and there's no other candidates, then the option is either to vote her in or to bring in an independent CPA, which is not a bad idea. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna. If we hired a independent CPA, we would find that person's going to be very busy, or that company's going to be very busy. And right now we don't have we have 3,000 in our budget right now to cover for a CPA. Not that there isn't more money that we could try to get out of the office area to do that. But right now, that's what we currently have as that line item as a CPA to prepare our federal taxes and 1099s and things like that. And it's normally costs us $23-25, and we put 3,000 in there just to hopefully cover inflation, stuff like that.
So Kurt, this is Stephen, I have a suggestion, an idea, or whatever the case may be. Every single person on the board had to stand up in front of people and answer questions. Why would we be good at our role? What are we going to do? Why would we blindly vote somebody in without having some form of an interview, some form of conversation with that person?
I mean, can we bring her to the board and she talks in front of us? I mean, she's given a resume. Is there any way that she could just come in front of us and have a quick talk for a few minutes?
Yeah, I think she could do that. Rich, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I think she'd come, talk to us. She's obviously interested in the position. So if she got it, she'd have to talk to us. So
I've got another one.
But you would never hire somebody, then interview them. You would interview them first.
Yeah.
And then have a conversation about are they a good fit, not just from their skill set, but from their, personality and, their beliefs. And there's a whole lot of things involved with this beyond just looking at somebody's resume.
Okay, well, I've got one for you guys then. This is Charles. We need to remove the ban on James Bilby, and I know for a fact he would stand up and interview for this job in a heartbeat. He's done it before. There's not very many people who know how this thing works any better than he does. So I'd be willing to put him in there, up for consideration at any rate. But we got to get rid of the 4-year ban.
Any
I
other
would move
comments?
yes, I would move. Kurt, both myself and I thought Stephen Foster asked you to put James on the agenda for this meeting. I would move. Didn't you get a communication from Gino Turner?
Did
Kurt?
I? No, I did
Yes.
not. No, I did not get anything from Gino. I talked to him, but I didn't get
Okay,
any.
well, that's a communication.
So we have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded already. And the part of the meeting where we did not get to was other last time we met. And that's where that topic can be brought up, is under other. And that is on our agenda for tonight. But I want to go forward with, if under treasurer, if it is the consensus that we vote her no at this time, and that is that we allow more candidates and an interview process that comes before the board. I'd be glad to do that also. But we do have a motion on the floor that was seconded. So if there isn't any more discussion on that motion, I would like to call the question, unless there's opposed to calling the question.
Well,
Please clearly state the motion so we don't have confusion like we did at the state body meeting.
Richard?
What?
Rich, I'm sorry, Rich.
yeah,
You want to restate?
yeah. I make a motion that we accept her and put her in as the treasurer for this year.
And that was seconded by? What did the record show?
I'll second that. This is Scott.
Okay. So that was Steve, I think you asked what the motion actually was. That was it? And we called the question.
So if the motion is to put her in, my vote is no. It's too early.
Okay. So let's go ahead and take a vote. I will start. Clay, are you ready? The motion is for Irene Era to be treasurer. Derek Patterson.
I vote no at this time.
Okay. Stephen Foster.
I vote no at this time.
Scott.
Yes.
Okay. Susan.
I vote no at this time.
Nigel.
I vote no at this time.
Charles.
I vote no at this time.
Dylan.
No at this time.
JC.
I vote yes.
Richard Sawyer.
No at this time.
Rich Zimmerman.
Yes.
Jesse.
No.
Okay. Clay, will you read back the outcome?
Yep, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 no's and 1, 2, 3 yeses. So outcome is no.
Okay. Do I
This
hear
is-
any other
This is
motions
Stephen. Can I
relative
make
to
a point?
treasurer?
If it,
And
when
maybe
we can,
Paul's talking right there. Stephen,
This
were you
is
saying?
Stephen. Yeah, I want to make a point of clarification, just so we're all on the same. Well, so I'm on the same page. I voted no at this time because we don't have enough candidates, and I don't know who she is. There may come a time when I could say yes, but no at this time. That's why I said no at this time.
Okay.
and I agree with that. This is Richard. I agree with that statement. She may well be the most qualified candidate. We just don't have enough to determine. We just don't have enough candidates to choose from. And if we don't receive any more, then so be it.
Okay.
I have a question. This is Amanda Moore from Tonganoxie. So, hi guys. So is this a?
I recognize Amanda Moore.
Thank you.
So is this strictly a board appointed position, or will this eventually be voted on by the entire state body?
It's a board appointed position.
Okay. I was just curious because I know there are a lot of candidates from the state body's position that we voted on where there weren't other options.
Yeah. There's only two. Sorry.
I was just going to say, from that standpoint, if we're concerned about not having options for positions, that probably needs to be looked at a bigger level as well. Not
Thank
just
you.
for this position.
So there's two.
Amanda, I would suggest with that, we take bylaw presentation requests, every year. If you wanted to put a proposal together to have that position be a voted on position by the state body, then that has to be submitted by, I believe, March 20th. And then the board would then, all of the
March
proposals
15th.
that are sent, March 15th.
March
Okay.
15th.
Then at that point, all of the proposals that we have at that point, the board will be presented, vote on, and then if they're approved, they'd be presented to the state body to be voted on, and only takes 50% to pass. And then anything that we do not approve can be looked at by the state body, but it would take 2/3 to pass.
Okay. That sounds good. Thank you so much.
And just
Thank
for
you,
a further
Amanda.
point of data on that, the treasurer position is not a voting member of the board. So I don't know if that's important to anybody, but that is part of the deal.
No, the treasurer is a voting member.
It is?
Yes, it is.
The secretary is not.
Okay,
Secretary
I had those
and our
backwards.
membership
My
director.
apology.
Membership director and secretary are not.
Okay.
Okay. What I did hear from everybody was that we'd like to have an opportunity to interview and come up with more candidates. And Jesse, you suggested that I send out an email statewide and reiterate the fact that we'd like to have more candidates, and I'm going to have a deadline in there. And I myself, I'm interested in getting this filled too with a really good candidate, because being the chairman and treasurer at the same time is not a fun duty. Okay.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Having them, both of them, especially when we got taxes and everything else to do right now through January. But what kind of deadline we want to make on having candidates, and if we do nothing but have a get together on a video conferencing and allow a person to talk to us, even if it's one or if there's two by then, what date would you like to do that by?
Is February 1st too late?
Yes.
Too soon?
I think it needs to be done by January 1st.
January 1st.
I would propose like January 14th. That's somewhere in between.
I
Not
couldn't
too
hear you,
aggressive.
Stephen.
I said I would propose somewhere like January 13th, 14th, something like that. I don't have a calendar in front of me. Something that splits the difference but keeps us healthy.
Stephen, January 12th is a Sunday, just like we're meeting on today. So if you're going to do it mid-January, you get the 12th or the 19th.
I think the 12th is perfect. I think that gives us enough to do our due diligence, get whoever involved, and make the right choice.
Okay.
Hey, this is Jesse. As far as somebody that's thinking about this, if you do send out a communication, Kurt, I don't think January 1st is out of line to let them, let us know, hey, yes, I'm interested. Here's my stuff. And then I think us as a board could, maybe on the 12th there of January, we do go ahead and have that meeting. And honestly, if there is none by January 1, I think that gives us a pretty clear picture of where we need to go. But just my thoughts.
I agree with Jesse. That's a great
That's
plan.
JC. I agree with Jesse too.
Okay, so I'll put an email out that has looking for a treasurer position. It'll be due by 1/1/25. Okay.
One, just to clarify, Kurt, 1/1/25 for anybody interested, and then we'll make the decision by 1/12, right?
Yes, sir.
Good.
Okay. Thank you for that clarity. Any other questions or comments on the treasurer? This time we will table it until, sounds like the 12th. Okay. Next item on the, Richard, were you wanting to say something?
No, it's all good.
Okay.
Just my, my foot.
Yes. So that said, let's move on with the agenda. State body meeting minutes. Clay, could you get with Kelsey? I think she has those for us. Okay. And if not, if agreed there, I'd like to move into report of officers. We don't have much time left. There's 15 minutes left.
Kurt, did you have the topic of the budget? Is that something we're going to talk about tonight, or is that not on the
I did
agenda?
have it as new business tier. Yes.
I think
the
that's
poll.
something we need to talk about. Just make sure that we're all good on that before we break.
Okay. If you guys don't mind, I'll go ahead and just bring that up now. Thank you for bringing that up, JC. We did the poll. The poll said, hey, we had 27 clubs that said, hey, it'd be nice as a majority vote that if we allowed to have a virtual meeting where people could sit in and watch what was going on relative to the budget. What made sense to do that? Well, it did make sense to do that at 8 o'clock in the morning. So we moved that to 8 p.m. at the Warrior Clash, which would be the 21st, which is next Saturday. I do have an email right now prompted up. I did send out the meeting virtually last week. And in that, I did attach the proposed budget. I do have an email that's already put together to the entire state body that has all the attachments that I sent out to you guys for the budget review. And I'll send that out as soon as we get done here. On Monday, I'm going to be going out to the Hartman Arena, which is now Park City Arena, at 1 o'clock and taking a look at their facility to be able to host that meeting. Wi-Fi. I also got a projector and a few other things. I do encourage participation in that. And if by chance that vote does not occur for whatever reason and a quorum isn't established, then we will plan to check adjust and Rich will be looking at your meeting or your tournament, unless there's one that's called strictly for the state body at a certain time at a certain location in person. JC, I don't know what else, what more I'll be adding.
I
but-
think we're going to have a challenge, at least in District 1 teams, getting that quorum. I know it only takes 5 from ours, but I've just been asking clubs if they're going to be there. A lot of clubs plan to go to the tournament, but staying at 8 o'clock at night and then driving back to Kansas City area afterward is not in a lot of their plans. I think it's good to try to have it, but I think we're going to have a challenge getting a quorum there. I know I can't be there. I got a high school tournament, and I just don't see.
Right.
I think we're going to have a challenge getting a quorum. That's all.
I think
Is there any way we can make the time earlier so we can have a quorum?
Well, the reason why I put it at 8 was that the second round at the Warrior Clash doesn't start until 2. And that's when they felt that they would be getting done with the tournament.
So we need the leader from the clubs. We don't need every coach from the clubs. If it happens right, I'm just asking, why can't we start it earlier than 8 so we get as many people involved as possible? If they can't leave the tournament for 30 minutes to go have conversations.
Well, if you've got
I
kids wrestling, are you going to sit there and leave to go to the meeting, or are you going to worry about your kids? It is a wrestling tournament first.
Yeah,
it is. It is. From the District 1, I've just done a straw poll, and I've asked around, and it's nothing official, but just asking how many teams are going to be there at 8 o'clock, and I don't have any. 0 have said they're going to stay at 8 o'clock. I can't be there because I'll be at a high school tournament. And most of the clubs I've talked to, as soon as it's over, they plan to head back with a 2.5-hour drive, like many of you others.
But can't they be on and represented virtually at that point in time? That's why you give the virtual option.
Not for a quorum.
Not for quorum. Yeah.
So this is Jesse. I just want to make
Go
Go ahead, Jesse.
Sorry.
Sorry, Steve. Hey, Foster, I think that's you. Okay. We are in an unprecedented place here, right? And we all know this. The state body knows this. That's why we asked to be able to do this virtually. And I know there's some people out there fighting it and some people out there talking it down. But correct me if I'm wrong, Kurt, the poll overwhelmingly, even though we had a very low response, overwhelmingly stated they would like to have a virtual option. Is that correct?
I think it was 27 total votes, 11 no's and 17 yes. I think that's the way it was.
Okay. That's different than what I thought then. But
11% voted. 11% of the 215 clubs voted.
And I guess where I'm going with all of this is regardless of whether it's in Kansas City at the Frontier Feud or Warrior Clash or Tournament of Champions in Salina, I don't know that we're going to find a perfect venue for it to get quorum. And especially with District 4, just a little selfishly, I think we will. I think we will at Warrior Clash. But where I'm going with all of it is everybody needs to, and I'm not talking about us as a board, but this is an unprecedented thing where we are trying our best as a board to get a budget passed to the state body. And, I've heard the comment of, well, it's in District 2. So it's, it's going to be in their favor and they're going to have the votes. And well, then we're, if we do it at Tournament of Champions, it's in District 3, they're going to have the votes. And I don't know how else to say it other than we've got to get this done. And if virtual is not an option, because it's technically not per our bylaws, we're going to have to go through the motions of starting with Warrior Clash, and then if we don't get a quorum, we're gonna have to try Tournament of Champions. If we don't get a quorum there, I mean, we keep prolonging this, but I think if somehow we could come to an agreement, you know, whether as a state board or as a state body, that we need to do this virtually to get it done, that's our best option. But if we're not gonna look at doing it virtually, I think we're gonna have to go through the motions of going to each of these bigger tournaments and looking for a quorum. My only thoughts on that. I think we should try to find a solution to do it virtually, but that's just me.
So
I agree with
this
Jesse.
is Stephen, I have a question for Rich. Rich, what time did the second session on Saturday of the Warrior Clash start last year?
I want to say it was like 2 or 2:30.
The flyer says 2:30, and how much of a break did you plan? I know what the flyer says. How much of a break did you plan between the first session and the second session?
There wasn't much of a break in there. I don't know what they planned, but I mean, it was running up right against one another.
But typically there's a 30-minute break to let kids warm up. Why can't we use the break between the first session and the second session to do this? And to Jesse's point, if we don't have a quorum, we don't have a quorum. But let's plan it to happen between the first session and second session, so we're not impacting people's driving home and things of that nature. We can make a plan, and if it doesn't work out, to Jesse's point, we move it to another tournament. But let's plan between the first, second, and the second session, and not firm the time. Let's say it's going to happen between the sessions, so it's going to happen anywhere, but I'm going to make up a number, between 1 and 2:30.
Yeah.
Why can't we do that?
This is JC District 1. I agree. I think if you did it in between sessions, the likelihood of us getting more participation is there. If the virtual is not an option, and if not, looking at Salina or trying to get what Jesse said, trying to adjust the bylaws where we come together, or however we got to do it, to adjust bylaws to make it where we can do it virtual. I know that's a big demand in District 1. I would like to see it that way in the future. But ideally, in between sessions is a lot more likely of people participating than it is at the end of the session at 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah. What time were those times again? You know, for in between the sessions?
I thought he said
So it ran right up to last year. It ran right up to 2:30 because we didn't give a 30-minute warm-up window. We gave like a 15 minutes because we were running behind.
And that was the Warrior Clash?
Let's plan,
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Rich.
let's plan between 1 and 2:30. That'll just happen sometime between 1 and 2:30.
I agree. And the only reason I say that is because all the people in the first session, what are they going to do? Sit around for 6 hours and wait till 8 o'clock comes here? So I would say in between the sessions would make more sense because you would get the people from the morning and the evening.
Hey, this is Jesse. I want to recognize Anna Marie Smith.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a really quick question. So I understand that people can go online to listen to the approval of the budget. So are you going to give a window so that people can get online? I know we won't be able to vote, but that's going to be a little tricky, I think.
That would have been the plan at 8 o'clock also, is those that were
Yeah.
in attendance. We would also have a virtual where they could listen in and see what was going on. So if it did move and it did go between sessions, we would offer the same thing.
Would you like put a blast out somewhere? I don't know where, but so that people know that the meeting has started, or I just want to make sure if anybody wanted to get online that they are able to at the right time. Thank you.
Thank you. From a board standpoint, I've heard some good suggestions and some concerns that if we have it too early, we're going to run into trying to press it too hard and trying to get wrestling started that morning. We've moved it to the end of the day to have the ability for them to be virtual. And now we're saying, hey, it would even work better if we did it in between the two sessions at the Warrior Classic and allowed that virtual to happen. I am looking for thumbs up. I mean, if that's a motion, I'd take it in a motion.
Richard
and I'd
makes the
like-
motion. Stephen, go ahead and make the motion and I'll second it.
I make the
JC makes the motion.
Richard
to have
seconds.
to have the meeting on budget at the Warrior Clash at
the
in
Warrior
between
Clash, but
sessions with a
Between
virtual
sessions.
with
Yes.
still a virtual attendance.
Yes.
Here's the problem. If we change that meeting, are we missing the bylaw of notice?
Well, we've missed the only thing we've done there is change the time of the meeting itself. And Rich, that was done when we originally set it up at 8 a.m. in the morning. And when we got the verdict back from the body on having a virtual meeting, 8 p.m. became it went from AM to PM. So the change in time, it has not been per the bylaws to begin with, but it did allow for the voice to be heard from the body that they would like to be there virtually. That's a good question. So I had a motion and we
Can we
have a
get a vote
second
on it?
on that. Any questions? I mean, any more discussion on it?
Just real quick from a board perspective, I know there's at least, how many of us to have to be there? Because there's at least 3 or 4 of us that are going to be out at high school tournaments.
Sure. So the bylaws say that 5 representatives, that means by club, have to be in there from each district with a total of 40 clubs. Doesn't mean a
Right,
club.
but we
leader.
have to have a board presence also. So
Correct.
we would have to have the board have a quorum to even have that meeting.
We've already had our meeting.
No. That
so-
that day of the day of Warrior Clash, for that to be an established meeting per our bylaws, the board members would have to be present in a quorum as well as the state body.
Yeah.
I don't
Take
believe
me
that's
through that.
correct because
I
we
don't
have
think
already,
that's true.
we've approved the budget. The
Yep.
board has approved the budget and now we're presenting it to the state body for approval. The board's
Exactly.
already met their responsibility.
Yes. And if you look under special meeting in the bylaws, you'll see that it is strictly for the body.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure no one was going to be able to poo-poo on this happening this way. And
Well,
because there's
Someone's
been-
gonna try, but someone
it
will
will
try,
be
but we're
challenging.
trying to do the right thing.
No, I totally agree. I totally agree with that. So, I mean, I'm all in favor of getting this done as soon as possible.
Just
And-
just for, I know we have a vote on the floor, but maybe preceding that, could we talk about who all is going to be there from the board too? Because I do feel that's important, even though it's not required.
Sure.
As JC, I can't be there.
Rich,
Yeah,
you
sure,
gonna be
I'll
there?
go.
I
This
will
is
actually
Amanda
not be
Rich,
there
and
on
I will
Saturday.
be there.
Don't everybody talk at once. So let me just call your name, okay? Derek, you be there?
I will not. I will be hanging out with JC in Kansas City.
All right. Stephen Foster
I will be there.
will not.
I will be there.
Okay. Scott,
I will not.
Susan,
I will not.
William,
I will not.
Charles,
Nope, I'll be in Chase County.
Dylan.
I will be there between sessions, but not at 8 p.m.
Okay. JC Christian, or we already heard from JC,
No, I won't.
but Richard Sawyer,
I guess so.
Rich Zimmerman,
I won't be there.
Jesse.
I will be there.
Okay. Amanda,
I will be there.
Clay,
I will not be there.
What was the total? I mean, I think we had the people not being there definitely outnumbered those that would be.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. With that done, let's go ahead and take the vote. Can I call the question?
Call the question.
Okay, thank you. To have the meeting in between sessions at the Warrior Clash and have it virtual, Derek Patterson, your vote.
Yes.
Steve Foster,
Yes.
Scott, Susan,
Yes.
Nigel,
Yes.
Charles,
Yes.
Dylan,
Yes.
JC,
Yes.
Richard,
Whoops, yes.
Rich Zimmerman.
I'm gonna vote no because I don't even know if they want it in, in between sessions.
Yeah, I know that they've worked with me all along. I mean,
Yeah, but so no.
okay. Jesse.
Yes.
Okay. Clay, will you read back to us the vote?
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 yeses, 1 no, and 1, I'm gonna assume it's an abstain from Scott.
Scott, did we miss you? We did miss you. What was your vote for this? Having the virtual meeting and the meeting for the budget in between the sessions is Warrior Clash. Are you there, Scott?
He might be listening, Kurt. There's 2 separate meetings. There's a Freestyle Greco meeting going on at the same time as this too.
Goodness gracious. Okay. All right. Based on that, I will redo the meeting for the interim in between sessions, along with the virtual meeting changing at the time. I will do that all within Teams and through USA Wrestling, announcing that through their website, their email also. I do have Teams loaded up with all the attachments, though I couldn't find a way to do the attachments within the USA Wrestling email system. So I loaded everything up and it's ready to go. That said, that meeting will be probably around 1:30 to 2:30 in that afternoon. I will pinpoint it even more after I talk to Nathan Blevins to make sure that it will concur with when he has the ability to have those sessions open, okay? Or the in-between session available. Is that okay with everybody relative to the time?
Sounds good.
We will take some flack over this, but that's okay. We're trying to do the right thing. Okay?
And Kurt, you're sending that budget out to the state body tonight, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thanks.
Okay. And in there, I had the JC, I had the time and reminder along with that, but that's all changing. So I need to get on the phone when we get off of here and find out from Nate if that's going to work time wise, and then we'll make those amendments. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I know my district is really looking forward to seeing it. So I appreciate that. Thanks, Kurt.
Yes, sir. Anything else on the poll, special body meeting, anything else? If not, we'll back up and we go. Right now, we're 7 minutes over our slotted time. Do we want to go into the next category of other that was from our original first meeting?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Anybody opposed to stopping at this moment? Based on not hearing any opposition, let's go into other business that comes up from you guys. What
Okay, first off, I want to put a motion out there to remove the 4-year ban from James Bilby that was illegally placed on him back in July.
I want to amend Charles' statement since it was illegal to begin with. I recommend that we exonerate James Bilby. James has admitted that he was at fault. There was never a lie as was given by in the reasoning. James never lied to anybody, but in any event, that's
I second Richard's motion.
And I will contend that he did lie, and we were all sitting there. What, you know?
Rich,
So,
there was never a
Rich,
lie.
Yes, there was.
Rich, I have one very important question. Why can we not get the transcripts? We can get the transcripts.
I don't know
for
who has
every
the
other meeting.
transcripts.
So without the transcripts, then it's just he said, she said. I don't understand why we can't get actual transcripts.
You would have
We
to
have
talk to the
transcripts
person
for-
that has the transcripts. I don't have those.
James was asked a direct question. James said, prove it. Kicked back in his chair, had an obstinate look on his face. There was no question about that. James never lied.
I agree.
I disagree.
Well, of course you do, Rich. Hell, you're the one who brought it up.
Hey,
Guys, oh.
Moving forward, just motions
Well,
out there.
so I have
Give me
a
a
next
second.
question. Here's my next question. Where in our bylaws does it state, our bylaw states that board members can be disciplined. Where exactly in the bylaws does it state 4 years?
It does not.
It does not. Next question. Why in the world would Will Coakley, on one hand, try to change the state chairman position to a 4-year position while simultaneously banning James Bilby for 4 years?
Because he knew that James Bilby was going to run. He knew James was going to run for the state chairman's position that year.
He
James
wasn't
had
trying
already.
to change it for 4 years.
That's not what the bylaw proposal I have says.
No, it was a
I have
2
a copy
year.
of the bylaw proposals, and it says that he wanted to change the state chairman position to a 4-year.
Guys, we got to
It was
keep this
2
about.
years.
We got to keep this. Guys, we got to keep this about the
Let's
kids.
just
I mean,
move
we're
on.
talking.
Let's vote. Let's vote.
let's-
We're gonna
hold on,
voting
hold
or
on.
not.
Hold on for a second, okay?
Yeah.
Let me add some things to this, because when that board meeting came up, I actually in that board meeting made a motion and challenged the legality of the meeting to begin with. I made a motion that that the meeting was not legal, that it was not done correctly. And as a result, it should be amended, and the things that were decided during that meeting should be null and void. That was interpreted by the chairman, who has the ability to interpret the bylaws. I was told I was wrong in assuming that that was an illegal meeting based on his input. I went ahead and made a motion to have him exonerate, or to have everything dropped, right? And then there was a second to that. Richard seconded it, and it was unanimously passed that it would not be approved by the board to delete that meeting, that it was not a good meeting to begin with, okay? So that board did their diligence relative to the activity that occurred and what was in front of them that night. Had Will judge on whether I liked it or not. He judged relative to what he interpreted the bylaws, and he went further. And on my motion, and it was motioned, and it did not pass. We went into the state body meeting, and there was an agenda item for Bilby in there, right? And there was a vote that day, correct? And that vote, I think, was 54 to something. It had passed, but it did not pass with a major majority. And there was questions in our state body meeting whether that was true. I went ahead and I contacted Mike Juby on the topic of whether something can be done by a majority, or does it take a 2/3 vote like everything else does? This is his comment. And Clay, I will send this to you as part of the record. Several years ago, we added a requirement that any motion coming from the floor that had not been previously discussed and voted on by the board would require a supermajority to pass. The intent was to make sure that every motion had a chance to be thoroughly vetted. I think that this would apply to this, but does some sound somewhat complicated? So might be overlooking something. Look at the bylaws. It's not in the bylaws. However, it was decided by the board at one point and never got incorporated. This was Mike Juby's comments on what happened at our state body meeting just a month or so ago. Okay.
If it's not in the bylaws and never got incorporated, then it's not in the bylaws.
Well, there's several things that haven't made it in the bylaws that obviously have been missed or put in the wrong place even. Does it make them invalid? There's probably a record of a state body meeting in 17 or 16 or 15. If we go back and look, that's probably been voted on there. It just never got updated. So
I'd like to recognize Anna. She's had her hand raised for a while.
Go ahead. Sorry, Anna.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think that Kurt, you're explaining it, and I just want to make sure I get this right. I will preface this by saying I don't know Mr. Bilby. I really don't know Mr. Coakley. I only had one interaction with him when he helped me with an insurance claim for one of our wrestlers. But other than that, I don't know either one of them. I have no personal knowledge of any of the things that transpired over the last year. My question is simply this, and I feel like, Kurt, you're getting to this. Does the board have the ability to override the vote that occurred at the state meeting? And I left before it was over, so I understand the vote was taken twice. That Mr. Bilby would not be or his suspension would not be revoked. And that's my question, please.
Thank you for the question, Anna. I heard the motion and then it got amended that they were lifting the 4-year ban. That's the way it originally started. And then it got amended.
So Kurt, can I ask you a question, please?
Go ahead.
So was I'm going to call it the Bilby decision. Was it a Bilby decision on the state board's agenda? Yes or no?
I'll answer that. It was not. It was under other business.
Nope. It was on the agenda though.
So, for the state body meeting. I'm sorry. Are you talking about
the state body meeting? When we went to the state body meeting, the body did not promote the Bilby decision. It was on the agenda. And once it's on the agenda, that means the board presented it, not the body. And because the board presented the conversation or the decision, then it only required a majority. And Mr. Bilby achieved a majority.
Well, no, it got amended.
Nope.
Yeah,
it was on.
Yes, it got amended.
It got amended.
It may have got amended, but the original conversation, the original idea was brought by the board. My second point of contention is this. Legally, our state bylaws for years and years, go back to the very first set of bylaws, our state bylaws clearly state that we will vote on membership to the board yearly. Did we have a board vote last year? Yes or no?
The previous year, you mean?
There
Yes.
was no
Did we-
vote the previous year.
Okay, if there was no vote the previous year, tell me which one of the board members had legal authority to vote on Bilby.
None of them.
None of them. Not
all the-
one person on the board who voted Bilby off had legal standing because there wasn't a vote last year. It's all bullshit. True or not true? Was there a vote? Yes or no? Was there a vote? Yes or no? Rich,
Point of
was there a
clarification on
vote
that.
Let's have a
last year?
poll.
Yes or no?
Hang on, Stephen, hang on. Jesse, go ahead.
Just my only point of clarification on that would be that there were 4 district directors that would have been voted in at their district meeting that were on the state board. As far
I
as
do
the
agree with that.
remainders, yes.
I do agree with you on that 100% because the districts did vote. The state body did not vote Coakley in last year. They did not vote any of the board members in last year at all. So what gave them standing to make the argument? And I'm going to throw this at you. I had a conversation. I'm not going to say the name. I had a conversation with one of the people at that meeting that day. And I asked him very specifically, who came up with the 4-year ban? Did the board vote on a 4-year ban? And his answer was, no, the board only voted to kick Bilby off. Coakley by himself determined the 4-year
That's
ban.
not correct.
And that is why, prove it. Give
That's
me the
not correct.
transcripts. Give me the transcripts.
Steve, I was
Give me the
not there
Don't
at
make
transcripts.
stuff
that
up.
meeting.
You're sitting here making crap up.
So one of your previous board members lied to me to my face. Is that what you're saying? Or you're saying I'm a liar? Which one?
Well, one of the two happened. So yeah,
One of
it
your
was
board
brought
members
up that
told
it
me
was a
that's
4-year
exactly
ban.
how it happened.
Hold on, real quick. Procedurally, I can tell you from the way it's written, the board presented the initial vote on that. Friendly amendments are always allowed. The friendly amendment did pass by a majority, by the 65% majority that was required to change that. But it's still been presented by the board. So in all technicality, there was only a regular majority of 50% to pass that or to not pass it. And if passed, it did get a 54%. Now, they said at the time that since it was brought from the floor, but it was not brought from the floor, it was originally presented by the state body. So by that being said, by our bylaws and our rules, regardless of a friendly amendment to the item, it's still a 50% majority.
You're welcome.
And
We
if I
actually voted to lift Bilby's ban that
Correct.
day.
Correct. we did.
Cheryl, if I may, correct me if I'm wrong, but per Robert's Rules of Orders, a friendly amendment to that does not require 2/3 vote because it is a friendly amendment.
Correct. I still think it got a 65% agreement on that friendly amendment. However, though, I don't even think that was even in the thing. I think it got a higher percentage than it was even required at that point in time. But the point comes down to, regardless of what the actual amendment was that was voted on, it was still brought to by the state board, and so it only required a 50. Or it was brought by the executive board to the state, and then the state voted on it at 54%. That is a passing rate. It was then shoved under the table saying it did not get a supermajority that required. And with all the yelling and everything else that went on there, we just kind of moved on. I went back and looked at it later on and said, this is not how it should have been. That was actually a passing vote. Per Robert's rules.
So the
Hey,
only
Rick.
thing we need to decide on, we don't need to decide whether Bilby's back or not back. We need to decide whether we voted to reinstate him at the board meeting. And I say that we did.
Correct.
What was the, correct me or refresh my memory, was the amendment to reinstate him or to remove the 4-year ban?
The actual amendment was to reinstate him and remove the 4-year ban. It was actually to do both things.
Okay.
I do not have a copy of it. And to be honest with you, I don't think anybody has a copy of it because 2 days before the meeting, they sent out one agenda. And the day of the meeting, they presented a completely different agenda. And then they got everybody to vote that the agenda was good. True or not true?
Rich, I'm
Yeah.
going to default to yourself because some of those meetings I did not attend. I was getting a van to get the team out of state for preseason nationals and one of them, but I was not there. And to the point that what Foster says, I do not recall that this line item was an item that was on the agenda to present to the state body in the last meeting that I was in.
It was not.
I do not recall that being.
It was
something
not
we
on
voted
there.
And I strictly say that because I was not in attendance for all the meetings that occurred. And that's why I was going back to your Richard and then Rich Zimmerman. Was there a vote by the body? Do you recall a vote by the board, I mean, that put that on the agenda for Bilby that day?
There was never a vote.
Rich, I'm asking Rich.
I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah.
I do not recall seeing one, Kurt,
I don't either.
to put it on the agenda. This
But
Jesse.
yet, clearly, it was on the agenda, correct?
It made the agenda. Yes, it did.
So that means because it was on the agenda, it was presented by the board, not the
That
body,
is accurate.
which requires a 51% majority, not a super majority.
Correct. And he got a 58% vote.
Stephen, you're right in every aspect, except it wasn't presented by the board. It was presented by Will.
By Will.
No, it was on
correct.
the agenda.
That's correct.
It was on the agenda presented to the state board from the executive board. Ed sent out, and that is a board presented item to be voted on, which is a 51% majority, pass or no pass.
So our decision is not whether or not to reinstate Bilby. Our decision is whether or not the action at the state body meeting valid or cleared Bilby. I believe that it did. I 100% believe that we voted Bilby back not only into his role, but to remove the 4-year ban.
No, I mean, it was very clear in the board meeting
Nope.
what we were
Nope.
voting on.
We-
Yeah, no, it was
Instead
very
of doing
clear
like the back
beforehand.
and forth,
It
can
was
we not just
explained
put this
multiple
to a vote? Can we not
I
put it to a vote here tonight?
I feel like we're so fragmented as a state right now, and this is the last thing that we really need to do. Like, I think it's just going to further fragment our state. I think the 4-year ban was so excessive, but I think this is a topic for the state body that we need to bring back to them next year. I don't think it's something, if we make a decision right now, do you know it's gonna,
you're
the
overwriting
perception
the
is
board.
gonna be horrible.
So let me ask you a question. Who was aggressed against? Was it the body or was it one person? How do you argue that it's okay to punish one person when we clearly, the body clearly said you can't.
Steve, I agree. It was one person. Steve. And I agree it was one person, Steve. And I love Bilby. He's one of my best friends too, and I think he's awesome. But I think what it would do to our state and what we have going on right now, it would cripple us. And the decision to reinstate him without the body's representation and voice in it would be horrible for us.
Well, at a very minimum, we need to vote to lift the 4-year ban. And then if the board decides to elect him back into a position, that is on the onus of the board. That's what I believe. If you don't want to lift everything, that's fine.
Hey, this is Jesse.
Go ahead.
Go
Jesse.
ahead, Rich. Sorry.
Oh, I think it was voted on by the state body. I think it needs to go back before the state body. I
But
think
it was voted on by the state body.
I think
to lift
overturning
the ban.
is going to send this board down a path we don't want to go down.
The vote was already done. And then it was presented from those in charge at the time incorrectly back to the state, because if they followed the rules as they were supposed to, that it was said and done right then, and it passed, and that was done. They misread their own rules.
But you're still going to have a problem that if
Jesse, go ahead.
Sorry, thanks, Kurt. I want to kind of reiterate what JC just said, okay? And I've talked to James. The board did make the decision, right, wrong, or indifferent. The state board voted to remove James with a 4-year ban, okay? That is what happened. Since then, so many things have transpired, correct? We've had elections and we've had multiple meetings and a lot of things have gone on since that took place. I agree. I think the state board has the authority to remove the 4-year ban if they so choose to vote on it, if we so choose to vote on it. But we're talking about a whole variation of things. I've heard the term reinstate. I've heard the term exonerate. I've heard the term remove the 4-year ban. And so I really think we need to, as someone just clarified, we need to narrow it down. And if there's action that needs to be taken, I would support removing the 4-year ban. But regardless of whether there was a majority, a supermajority, and what that required, and whose interpretation to what, whether it's Mike or Kurt or Will at the time, too many things have gone on to just simply say that we can reinstate James Bilby. And to JC's point, there's a lot of eyes on that. And right, wrong, or indifferent, we just need to be very, very careful on how we proceed with this. But I do think we would have the capability to remove a 4-year ban if we so choose. But I think it would be up to James to stand in front of the state body next year if he chooses to run for an elected position or an appointed position on the board. That's my thoughts. That's my 2 cents on it.
I totally agree, because what you're saying, reinstatement's not, I mean, you're talking about giving him his position back. Well, his position's already been voted on. It's already filled.
I agree.
Scott Reek is doing that job, and he's going to do a fantastic job, and we're all very excited about that for sure.
But we should not preclude him from another position.
Absolutely not.
So somebody earlier made the motion. I don't know if it got seconded. I want to second the motion that we lift the 4-year ban.
Right. The motion should be to lift the 4-year ban, and then we can move forward with there. If he wants to go for the treasurer job, he's more than welcome to submit his application and stand in front of everybody and present his case, just like Ms. Vieira and anybody else who comes up, and we will take that under due diligence and vote on that appropriately at the time.
Agree. 100%.
So a question on that. If we lift the 4-year ban, is he eligible immediately, right? Like today, before next year's meeting?
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay. Yes, it's done. It was I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that was already clear.
So we're reinstating him then.
No, we're not, because his position's already filled.
Yeah, Scott Reek has his position.
If we were truly reinstating him, he would have his status and his position back.
Correct. And he's not the police dog record director.
He's not getting either back. He's just getting the ban removed. And then if the board decides that he's a good fit for some other role, then that's up to the board to decide.
Or if he doesn't want to do that and he runs next year, then he's more than welcome to run. But you're not going to.
Absolutely.
The ban is the issue.
I agree, guys. I think it's a perception issue, and I think that it goes in front of the board like we're doing something that we shouldn't be. As much as I love him, I think he's done more for the state than anybody. I think the perception issue causes some issues there.
Well, I think the one thing that would be different is I love the fact, I don't know how it worked before, but I love the fact that anybody and everybody's invited to these meetings. So let's
Me
say
too.
hypothetically we remove the 4-year ban. And let's say hypothetically somebody nominates him for the treasurer position. He's going to answer to anybody and everybody who wants to be on the call, not just the board, which I think is fair and valid. So we're not just giving him a free rein to go do whatever. We're lifting a ban and letting the process work, because that's what it is, a process, and that's how it should work.
We're lifting a 4-year ban that is nowhere listed in our bylaws.
So a ban can
Absolutely.
be happen. I mean, coaches have got banned before.
Yeah, 3 days.
Maybe 2 weeks.
No,
maybe 2
they've
weeks
got
at the most.
suspended for a year before.
That's like 4th offense.
Yeah, so
It's
Mr.
listed
Stevens
within the
here,
bylaws.
Mr. Stevens here in Wichita hasn't even got that yet, or maybe he did. But how many people did he beat up? James didn't beat nobody up.
No.
I also think that if we make this motion and whoever makes it, we need to put some merit behind the reasoning behind that motion, meaning whether it's an unprecedented act, overreach on the previous board, something along the lines that makes, I mean, I think we all agree or
Not documented in the bylaws.
Let
Arbitrary.
me put this out there. I motion to have the 4-year ban removed for one of several reasons. It was an illegally held meeting. The correct timeframes weren't given ahead of time. It's also an unprecedented ban that's never been enacted upon or is written anywhere in our bylaws that it should be. Thirdly, at the state meeting, it was voted upon to have things reversed. However, because of confusion over amendments, the motion was said to have not passed when it actually did legally pass via the state body.
I agree.
know.
We can't undo the fact that somebody has already voted in a position, but we can undo the 4-year ban.
So that's my motion, right? There was
I
there was a
second
lot
it.
of bad things.
So that said, Clay, would you read back the motion? Actually, there was a motion on the floor. There was a motion on.
Yeah,
the
that's what I
floor.
was.
It's the same
That's
motion.
what I was getting ready to.
It's the same motion. That was my actual original motion.
Well, Jesse.
He restated it and I reseconded it.
Yeah, well, Jesse said, hey, we need to put a little bit of reasoning behind this. There was 3 things that were noted. The first one, I already went through the diligence on being turned down on every aspect I could during that meeting, overrode. So that board said that that was a legit thing that happened. So the first one, I don't think carries a lot of merit just simply because we came out of last year in that position. I think the second thing that was cited about being unduly 4 years being waived on what would be reasonable, I think that's a good one. And I don't recall the third, but
The vote was actually passed via the state body because of the way it was presented. However, within the confusion of that, they had misinterpreted that it would need a super majority when actually it only needed a 51% vote, and it got a 58% vote at the state body meeting.
okay. Clay, will you read that back to us?
Yeah, give me just a second. I'm typing it out here. Well, I'll just do this. Motion made by Charles Hill to remove the 4-year political ban on James Bilby, seconded by Steve Foster, for reasonings of the previous board having the illegal meeting where he was removed, the unreasonable and unprecedented punishment that is nowhere to be found in our bylaws, and the confusion on the outcome of the vote at the state body meeting.
Okay. That was seconded by who? Steve Foster?
Correct.
Okay.
Richard calls the question.
Let's go ahead and have the vote then, unless there's no more discussion. Do I have a second to that question being called?
Yes. Steven seconds.
Stephen Foster seconds that the question be called. Let's take the vote. The vote is to drop the 4-year ban on James Bilby. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
That is correct.
Okay. Derek Patterson,
I will abstain on this vote.
Stephen Foster,
Yes.
Rich,
Rich, no.
Scott, Susan,
Oh, I'm torn. I'm gonna do a Derek Patterson. I'm gonna abstain.
Nigel,
I'm going to abstain because I was not part of any of the previous actions that led up to this, nor part of the board at the time. So I'm going to abstain.
Charles,
Yes.
Dylan,
Yes.
JC,
Abstain.
Richard,
Get that mic working. Yes.
Jesse,
Yes.
Clay, will you read back the outcome?
I have 1, 2, 3, 4 abstain, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yes, 1 no, and 1 unvoted for a passing yes. The 4-year political sentence for James Bilby has been removed.
Okay. And let's reword that to 4-year banned, okay? Because I didn't hear that in the.
I kind of think the other one is more fitting. Did you come up with that with yourself?
Okay.
Can we
It
go to
is
sleep
nice.
now? Tomorrow's my birthday. I want to go to bed.
It is 9:09 at this time. Is there any
9:10.
other business that we want to discuss at this time?
I have one other piece of business. Sorry, guys. I'll be quick about it. We need to start a disciplinary committee on Clint Slider for his actions at Fargo this year. I want to have that, however we get that done. I will get you all the actual details. I will email it out to the board. And then we can kind of go about however we do that moving forward. I'm not sure about the process.
Well, we will take a look at, get your stuff together. And I would like to say that when we get done with this meeting, that we've decided that we're going to meet on the 15th, it sounds like, if there's candidates. So we will make that part of the agenda. But let's look through the bylaws and make sure that if something happened in Fargo, where does the jurisdiction lie within Kansas to host that committee?
Correct.
So let's go through that and make sure that that is known. And it could be that it's brought forward to the board at that time on the 15th. And then we go from there from a committee standpoint. Is that okay with everybody?
Yes.
Or do no
Absolutely.
one
Absolutely.
disagree?
The 15th of Wednesday. Is that what we're going for? Or are we going for that Sunday?
Oh, no, the 12th. Isn't the 12th, the Sunday, January 12th?
The 12th is the Sunday.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, January
Did I
12th.
say 15th? I apologize.
Yeah, January 12th meeting.
Sorry. That
Just
said, I
because I
see
don't know
someone's hand
what-
up.
Can
I
I
see
say
some-
something? Just because I don't know what happened at Fargo, I was not there this year. How come none of this was brought up at the state body meeting? Like, was it that bad that we need to?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so why
Um,
was it brought up when we were discussing all this other stuff? And how come it wasn't brought up at the District 1 meeting?
I'll take a stab at that. I would guess because one of the guys that would have brought it up was not not in attendance at the time, and the others that are on the board now weren't on the board quite yet.
Okay,
Correct.
okay. And just because I have to see his face every other day, is it bad enough that we need to address this now and not later?
I mean, it's a bunch of personal actions that he did while we were at Fargo. Standing in the middle of the arena.
Cheryl, didn't he get
on the
physical
last-
with you?
He threatened to.
Okay.
He threatened to. It's all on flow film. I'll have it all documented and timed out. He also stood in the middle of the arena the last day of freestyle as our last kid was losing in the blood rounds, and was yelling at the top of his lungs how bad we effing suck. I mean, that was the start of it that week. So, I mean, there's a lot of actions that just unbecoming of a coach that we need to have talked out or get something worked out there for sure.
Okay. I'm just gonna say this from District 1 view. The actions that he displayed at the District 1 meeting was kind of
Indicative of how he is.
Yeah,
Just, I mean,
was
Clint
kind of
and I
like a
got into
tell-all.
disagreement. Clint and I got into disagreement. It was handled there. That was it, basically. He has anger. We were both passionate people. It wasn't professional, probably on both our parts, but it's done.
I get that. I do. But when you come yelling at me at another mat that I'm coaching at in the middle of Fargo Arena,
yeah,
because I was doing what I was supposed to do in the corner, like there's a difference.
Yes, absolutely. I just don't want to bring District 1 meeting into
No,
that.
I'm sorry. That's my bad.
That's okay. I mean, he and I had some words, but I mean, we were both pretty passionate, and that's what it was. I know your situation, Charles, a lot worse than what happened there.
Yeah,
so.
it was pretty unacceptable.
Just because he's an Olathe North coach, my own personal feeling, I think he knows his stuff. I absolutely think he knows freestyle and Greco. But I have seen him be inappropriate with kids from Olathe North as a coach. I've seen him cuss at them. I've seen him basically spit in their face. And so I'm looking forward to hearing what happened. But I know all of us are passionate, and I know emotions get involved in a lot of that we do. But at the end of the day, we have to remember that we're not there to represent ourselves. We're there to represent Kansas. And regardless of what our emotions are at the time, we always have to remember to keep them in check because we're always under a microscope. And Fargo being basically the Olympics of high school wrestling, we got a lot of eyes on us. And of all places, we can't do it at national tournaments like that. We really shouldn't do it at all. But if you're going to lose your cool, don't have it where there's 5,000 people watching on top of everybody that's got a camera in front of them. And so that's just my 2 cents. So I'm looking forward to hearing what happened.
Yeah, and the other board did know about this. They just brushed it under the rug, just so you know.
With this topic being pushed off to the 12th, I mean, I think we can, obviously let Charles get whatever he wants to present ready and present that. CJ Johns, well, okay, there you go. He had just texted me and said he was having some issues figuring out the hand raise button, but he wanted to be recognized. So I would like to recognize.
Is that him under C there with his hand up? If
Yeah,
so,
correct.
go ahead. Go ahead.
You guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I was just questioning on Freestyle Greco State date and location. I don't think that's been set yet, that I know of. And I think that's something that we need to get done fairly quick.
Agreed.
So what we'll do is we'll put that on the agenda to talk about next time we get together. We got several things that we didn't get to on new business. So I'll add that on there. Thank you, CJ, for bringing that up.
Kurt, on
Yeah.
that state freestyle, do we need to include something in our budget for this year for the state freestyle tournament?
We never have
So
other than three-man mechanics last year. And it was found that they don't need our help to do that.
Okay.
I have a few things to bring up about that. I don't want to extend this meeting out that long. I was hoping to get a little more time to go over a few things. But that is one of the things that Adam and I have talked about. Most pressing tonight is he plans to send 6 officials to the U.S. Open this year for upgrade purposes and some other things. And he really wants for us to, or for me to approve his 6 guys to be able to purchase their tickets to Vegas like right now as soon as possible, because the prices increase dramatically the closer we get to that date. And we're out at 5 months right now. So they can buy them now for $250, $300. You wait till March or April, then they go up to $600 and $700, and those are coming out of our funds. So I don't necessarily have to have an approval by the board to say that he can do that, but I would like to.
We do need to make sure that the guidelines are not double both way travel as what ate up our budget and officials
Right.
last year.
Well, this is specifically for tickets to one specific event that we've always done in the past this same way. They just say, go ahead and buy your tickets now. We'll get you. It's going to be part of our budget anyway, as opposed to waiting until March to say, yeah, go ahead and do them. It's a cost savings thing that I'm bringing up right now. So it doesn't need a vote or anything. I just want people to be aware that I'm going to tell him to go ahead and tell his 6 guys that they can do that now, and that we'll reimburse them, because the reimbursement comes at the end of the year anyway.
Yeah, the other thing we need to do too is the cadets and schoolboy duels, and what Scott's off on the other meeting doing right now. Those things need to be looked at. Susan, you got yours in for the girls. Got to get that processed. But I see Jamie has his hand up too. I'd like to recognize James. Go ahead, James.
Hey, Kurt. No, you just said exactly what I said. Is the schoolboy and cadet duels, based on what that budget has, is for one team and a couple alternates and the coaches. But we need to get Scott to get those by January 1st, because same thing Nigel's talking about. As you know, Kurt, being the treasurer before, those prices will go up exponentially. So Scott's got to get on those ASAP. And that is not an easy process. They have to go through and use a spreadsheet with specifically Southwest Airlines. And it will be cheaper leaving Kansas City versus Wichita, depending on where that team's going. So like last year, schoolboy was in Pennsylvania. It was cheaper to leave from Kansas City heading east to Pennsylvania, and then cadets went to Utah, so it's cheaper to leave from Wichita. And then on the officials, Nigel, I don't think we've sent 6 before. Do you guys have the budget to cover that?
I don't think we do, but
I don't
I'd
think we do
agree with you
either.
too. We have never taken 6
No.
people and approved
No.
dollar amounts that much for that many people.
I mean, I think my fear is we're going to blow that officials budget, a chunk of it on that trip. We've never sent 6 before in 12 years I've lived in the state. So
let me double check with him, because there's also a U23 in Ohio that has just 3 people, and I'm sure that that's not what he asked. He was asking for 6 people for the U.S. Open, because they specifically need upgrades for their membership. So
and I get that part too, because I'm just thinking back last year. I think it was Kenny, Anderson, and Adam. I think we typically send maybe 2 or 3 to Vegas, not 6 though, just for what it's worth in historical context.
Yeah, but we didn't pay for all that either.
No, we did not.
Yeah, well, this is right now we're talking about just the plane tickets. We're not talking about stipends and all that other stuff. Just
We
plane
didn't pay
tickets.
for any of that last year.
But
I'm good.
I have been in contact with him. We had probably a 2-hour phone call. because I sent him the list of the events that we typically send people to, and I said, I need you to break this down to me exactly how many people you want, and then as close to the total cost that you're looking at per person, so that I can go through and figure out what we can afford.
Yeah, I think that you'll find that in the stuffs I've sent you relative to officials, where most of that money's been spent in the past. Each one of those is a line item in there, but and I'll be glad to go over that with you, but Bilby's right. We will blow the heck out of that officials budget if we allow this stuff to go on, especially when they're contract laborers.
Right. Well,
Even half should maybe be considered versus a whole ticket. This isn't just one person running off and doing it, you know?
Right.
And we've always been considerate of it. It's just that it's not a full blown thing that happened. We can't continue to allow that to happen.
No, I understand that. I will definitely get with you at some point, maybe this week, Kirk, to go through some more of this, just to make sure that we're not too far out from where we want to be. Because I told him that I plan to get our budget, our number for freestyle or the summer officials back to what it was previously, not last year, but 2 years and previous to that. And that is my goal, and I will do that.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's single way. But this is way beyond what those dollars are going to do. James is correct. That's what will happen. And I see CJ, your hand's still up. Okay.
That would be a mistake on my part.
That's all right, man. We'll come back to that discussion. Let's discuss more. I wouldn't mind. I see that Jesse's hopped off, getting ready to hop off. Next time when we get together, we've got to talk about the state folk style tournament on the 26th from 1 to 3. There's a few of us that are going to be in Topeka on that day to meet with Go Topeka. Anybody on the board's welcome to go. I just need to know who would be coming on the 26th, the day after Christmas. That's on the Tuesday. Please let me know so I can let them know.
What is it about?
Huh?
It'd be a Thursday. Yeah. What is the meeting about that you're going to?
Oh, it's Topeka. It's Go Topeka relative to our state tournament. We got a whole different crew running it, and they want to meet, go over questions, the tournament operations, all kinds of things be going on that day. And hopefully we can bring some others in.
I've met with them before, and it's very simple.
Yeah. Plus, we got a sealed bid that needs to be done too. Did Foster hop off already?
Yes, he did.
Okay.
So
Kurt,
I move we adjourn.
I was gonna say, Kurt, yeah, I'll tell you, I'll go with that. I need to get in on that, on the kids state tournament. I need to start getting my nose in on that and understanding that a little better too.
Okay.
So
I'll second the vote that we adjourn.
That was Dylan.
Yes.
Know that we will
Richard
be talking
made the motion and Dylan seconded.
Yeah, know that we will
then-
be talking about the state body meet, the state folk style, the Win magazine, any bylaw changes. We'll be looking at a treasurer and the state freestyle Greco tournament on the 15th.
sounds good.
Okay.
Say
On the
goodnight,
12th, Kirk. The 12th,
Good
not the
night.
15th.
12.
12th. I'm sorry, it's 12th. I keep messing that up. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I missed what you said.
I just said good night. Thank you so much. I appreciate everything you guys are doing.
Appreciate it. I really
All
do.
right, bye-bye. Thanks.
Thank you. Hello? Hello?